Welcome to Overtime on Inferno, your weekly roundup of all the biggest stories in CSGO, quicker than we could rate EG, unrate EG, and rate EG again. It'd be a really big help to us if you could review us at the end of the episode. It really helps us. I'm Logan. This is aizy. Let's get into it. We have some banger, very important news to talk about today.
So we have a very, very important discussion.
Yeah, this is time-sensitive breaking news. In the TLDR Discord, which should be in the description of this video on YouTube and or in this comment section on Spotify, Apple Music, etc., there's currently an argument about the best bun for a burger.
Yeah.
And we need to settle it here, now.
Yeah, I mean, Krilla just said that he thinks brioche is overrated. Well, actually, no, what he said that he asked us if we think brioche is overrated, and I've taken that as him looking for validation. And I'd just like to put it on record that he is incorrect.
Yeah, he is, in fact, incorrect. Pretzel buns?
I don't know what that is. Well, I know what it is, but I've never had one.
Okay.
I don't know what it's like.
It's perfect. I don't have a better explanation than it's perfect. It's pretzel in a bun shape on top of a burger.
I mean, it sounds pretty good.
Encompassing a burger.
I say the best one I've ever had was 2 Belgian waffles, but I wouldn't recommend that for your arteries.
I've also had that before. Very good, but could not do it on a burger normally.
Oh, I definitely could. I just shouldn't. Brioche is excellent. Very underrated. If you're in England or the rest of the UK, go to Morrison's. In the bakery section, they've got these salt and pepper buns. They're so good. Oh my God, they're so good. They're just like these big, soft buns topped with loads of salt and pepper. Absolutely delicious.
I've had burgers on like New York bagels before.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Banger. Yeah. Basically, here's I think our general thing. If it's a carbohydrate and can be shaped into a bun,
it's going to be good.
I'm for it.
I say I sent a picture of there's a burger place in Birmingham which is very good called Hanbao.
This is
whoa, and they have a burger called the Odd Future, which is on a glazed donut, turned inside out and grilled, with cheese, burger, bacon, jam.
But it's got frosting and sprinkles too.
I'm not sure there are 3 better words put together
than bacon,
bourbon, bacon, jam. Phenomenal.
Genius.
Actually, I have once had Unduja jam, which looked illegal. With fresh chili and baconaise on it. It's when I went, I had a burger that was it was a mac and cheese. It's like mac and cheese patty with a beef patty. And
for those of you who don't know, we record this podcast at noon Eastern time, and I push my lunch off by an hour to do this, so this is the roughest conversation we could have had right now.
When I came to, a year and a half ago, I went to New York, and I came and saw you in person, and we recorded a podcast.
We recorded and then we went to burgers.
We actually had a very good burger, and I had a blueberry and brie burger. It was delicious. It was like big, thick, like burger, and it just when I thought like, oh yeah, blueberry, it'd be like a little bit of blueberry sauce. No. This was 2 handfuls of blueberries, lightly, smashed a little bit, and then just topped on this burger. It was fucking good. It was so good.
All right, let's talk about Counter-Strike. We've now spent 3 minutes talking about
Counter what?
All right, we're gonna start. We're gonna get to what's currently happening in Blast towards the end of this episode. But we have some other stuff to talk about first. We're going to go in order of importance from least to greatest. We'll start with MSL and aizy.
Whoa. Hang on.
They're playing on a new team.
They're currently playing as we're recording. A team called NKT. I'm not really sure what it stands for. They're currently 1-1 with Coalesce. So, hopes aren't particularly high just yet, but aizy's playing well, which is nice to see. I'm just glad he hasn't retired.
Yet. I mean, to be fair, I say yet for everyone. They're playing with Nico, by the way, recently released from Original Gamers. So that's cool. That's
Original
interesting.
gangsters.
I prefer original gamers, but yeah, sure, that works too. Um, yeah, I don't have much more to say.
No,
MSL,
it's just
AZ,
nice to see
Nico.
them play. I mean,
It's just that's an old North lineup right there.
it's very nostalgic waking up watching them and they're losing. It's very good.
Watching them and they're losing. All right, so on to the next bit of importance. Let's go talk about Devilwalk. Devilwalk, former 2-time major champion. One is a player, one is a coach, if I remember correctly. My Counter-Strike history. That sounds about right. We're gonna pretend that's right. If it's wrong, just pretend what I said was right.
Fair
He
enough.
will be joining the Bad News Eagles as a coach.
I think this is quite an underrated move.
I like
Devilwalk. I think his FPX team was very well coached. They had multiple different in-game leaders, and they kept a very similar system that was pretty successful for them, especially for the level of player they had. And that team is, basically when he left, didn't really do anything. I suspect Devilwalk is quite a good coach, and I suspect this move is actually quite astute from them. However, Bad News Eagles at their best are a team who basically just forewent any kind of coaching and any kind of macro game and just Virtus pro'd it up. So maybe trying to coach them misses the point.
Maybe trying to coach them misses the point, but I also think it maybe makes them into a more well-rounded team. It's only time will tell.
I don't want them to be well-rounded.
Only time will tell on this. James Banks has not yet said anything huge and massive about this, so I will wait until Resident Hype Man says something.
So, I was talking about Bad News Eagles yesterday with a friend of mine, and I was talking about how they are the opposite end of the spectrum to Big, and I think it's really important to have teams like Bad News Eagles in the ecosystem, because what Big are a macro check. Like,
yeah, they're the biggest. Like, we will outpace you at every given point. We're going to be the best.
Big will outplay
you
team in a macro sense, but in a micro sense, there are very few teams who can't just like outfight Big. Bad News Eagles are the complete opposite. They have no interest in trying to outplay you. They want to outfight you, and I think it's very important to have teams like that near the top level, because if you are a good team, you need to be able to play against these teams. Like, they are a good litmus test. Is your default solid? Is the way you play actually watertight, or are you taking too many gambles? And a team like Big or a team like Bad News Eagles can exploit that in completely different ways. I think that's really important to have. So I hope they actually don't become a more well-rounded team.
It's the same as when people say something along the lines of like, oh, when you're playing in like Face at level 10 or something like that, and you see a silver strat, and it's like, well, there's no fucking way that this guy like actually did this, right? Like, that's so fucking dumb. Why are you? They're that to professional high level Counter-Strike is they're going to be your silver strat, and they'll just take advantage of you. I imagine
when you play Face It in North America, you don't have the same variety, but in Europe, when you see a 5-stack of certain nationalities, you kind of have. It's kind of interesting that you have an idea of how they're going to play in.
It's the Peruvian peak. Because in North America, we get South Americans.
Interesting. I think that's probably a lot to do with ping as well, though.
No, I don't think so. Because they have Gamers Club in Brazil, and that's got to be less ping than.
Oh, okay.
Than like LA servers or
we have
servers.
Like every team from, if you see a Kosovan 5-stack, they do just play like Bad News Eagles. It really is like that. And I think it's quite interesting how in Europe a lot of the big teams do follow the same stereotypes that I think the ones that differ is Russian. Like, Russian teams tend to be very slow. Russian 5-stacks don't.
There's 3 teams that don't play the same in like the top 30, and by the same I mean the same general play. And it's Big, Bad News Eagles, and Outsiders. And we have talked about how they are skill check on every other team at any given moment on many occasions.
Outsiders are the most interesting because they can out-micro you. They're like Big, but with skill. And that sounds really bad, but...
No, it's right.
Like, okay. They actually... Like, you could put Fame on a... You could put Fame, Flip, Jame on teams that just scrap, and they would still be pretty good. Whereas, I'm not sure you could put Bad News Eagles players on Big, and they'd still be any good.
All right. Let's go to the next bit. This is a walk on. I made a thing of like stuff we're going to talk about, and then I just decided we were going to talk about this. So, Blast has announced the Paris Major Qualifiers, which normally isn't that big of a thing. We all knew the RMRs were going to exist. Opens are from the 13th to the 14th of February, and closed A is
Which I is the last day of Katowice. So some teams.
Well, the hope is
kind of
that
awkward.
The teams that are in the last day of Katowice won't be in open qualifiers.
Well, yeah, but like if there's people who are attending. Or like that, like it seems weird to overlap that, but whatever.
Either way, throughout February will be RMR qualifiers. I'm taking this opportunity to announce that TLDR will be co-streaming some of these at some point with some cast of people.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to be in Katowice, so I won't be able to attend the open qualifiers.
But we will do other qualifiers in them. We're going to do some of them at some point. Keep an eye on Twitter when we will announce it, and they'll be co-streamed to Twitter and my Twitch channel or TLDR. Either way, we will be doing them. We did them for Antwerp, I think it was, and it was a big success, so we're going to try and do them again. All right. Yeah. Next is ESL Pro League, which I need to find the article for. You want to start?
ESL Pro League. So I wrote all the welcome letters in the last 4 days. Which has been stressful because Katowice hasn't happened yet, and I'm having to write them as if it was difficult. But I that's the reason I can remember most of the teams that are playing. So there's some interesting ones.
Yeah. So teams going through. I'll start with the ones that make sense. Astralis, Outsiders, Big, Pain kind of makes sense. It's
their first time at Pro League though. Pain.
Interesting.
It's their first time here in the big leagues.
Pain, Complexity, which again NA
partner team,
Cloud9, ENCE, OG, Evil Geniuses, which we will talk about more in a little bit. Spirit, FaZe, Fnatic, Eternal Fire, Furia, Greyhound, G2, Rare Atom, Heroic, Imperial, Mouse, ATK making their appearance.
Yep.
Navi,
their first time as well, I think.
Yep. Navi, Ninjas in Pajamas,
Second
Liquid, time. MIBR, Vitality, 00 Nation, Movistar Riders, and Forza. I left 2 teams off the list. 3 teams off the list.
Rooster.
Rare
Atom, did you say?
I did say Rare Atom. Rooster, Saw, and IHC.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Are my interesting quick pick teams. There's reasons behind this. Saw is actually a very good team, but last time we saw them at Pro League, they upset a huge amount of people. And
when was the last time? I don't think they've been at Pro League.
They were okay. They were at some event.
They nearly qualified for the major that one time.
No, they were at Pro League Season 17. They absolutely were. No, wait, we're about to go into
this is Pro League Season 17. I think you might be thinking of FTW, who qualified through conference.
That's who I'm thinking of.
And then
the other Portuguese teams.
Ujerks and somebody else was on that team and got cut before they actually got to Pro League. So this is the time they actually, like, they got cut from FTW, who got spanked at Pro League, joined SAW, and now have qualified, which is pretty fun.
So
pretty cool.
Interesting things about Rooster. They're an Australian team, and let it be known that none of these players have ever played an event that I've ever heard of.
Well, Chelios, I don't know if you know who Chelios is.
I don't, obviously.
About 3 years ago, he was always at the top of stats pages on HOTV. And nobody knew who this guy was because nobody had ever seen him. There was rumors that he was there was all sorts of rumors about him because nobody had ever seen him. He'd never been to LAN, but he was this insane kid. Nobody knew if he was some people thought he was 29, some people thought he was 16 and a complete prodigy. It seems like he's finally going to be on LAN. Everyone's going to see him. He's going to be a real person. He's he's really talented by the looks of things. His numbers have always been really good. So it's kind of interesting to watch him play. I've heard rumors about how good he is. So we actually get to see if he's any good. Chelios is the player I'm really excited to watch because I remember hearing about him a while ago.
More of what my big thing is that Australia does not have a huge amount of teams, and so they generally recycle the same 10 players within 3 teams or something like that.
Yeah, and these are
none of these players are in any of that general recycling pattern that used to be Greyhound, Renegades, and I guess at
Order.
the time, Order or 100 Thieves. There was like 15 players that we just cycled between Australia. Yeah. These are all new players.
It's going to be interesting. Like, it's always fun to see new teams and new faces.
Speaking of not new faces and not a new team, but a team we are nonetheless excited for, IHC is coming back.
IHC are fun, man. Like, I think this team is one between them and Rare Atom. I think these might be the two best teams Asia's produced. And I think Rare Atom will go under the radar.
The old Tyloo team, mind you.
The old Tyloo was like the old Tyloo team could upset, whereas I feel like Rare Atom and IHC are actually teams who can play pretty decent Counter-Strike and can actually win games. It sounds weird to say fairly, but like
they will not be
Tyloo when they won. You always felt like it was not something that could be repeated.
Yeah, it feels
the
like
Rare Atom play is more normal.
Yeah, because Tyloo just W keyed it everywhere and hoped that their aim won.
Yeah,
it was the Yukindar, but for an entire team.
Whereas players like Jamyoung are actually I think Jamyoung is really good. I think it's almost a shame that he's Chinese, because if he wasn't, he'd be on a much better team. I think he's really, really good.
All right. Let's talk about another tournament. So normally we get our information off of HLTV on general stuff. This one, I had to go deep into the pits to find the information on this. I had to go to dust2.us, which is terrible, right? I know. So IEM Brazil on Twitter was from IEM. The IEM Brazil invites were released on Twitter. They will be Navi, FaZe, Vitality, NIP, Mouse Sports, Fnatic, Furia, Heroic, Outsiders, Cloud9, OG, and there are slots for like an NA representative, an EU. What is it? It's two EU qualifiers, one NA qualifier, one SA qualifier, one Asia qualifier. Now you may notice distinct lack of any states of matter on this list, because you would have thought that Liquid would probably be invited. I mean, at worst, they're not. First of all, they're an IEM partner team, so you would have expected that they would have been invited just off that basis. But second, if you go by any given ranking, they're a top 5 team in the world, whether or not they actually show that or not. They're on also a given day.
Well liked in Brazil.
Yeah, so seems a little odd. But the jackasses over at dust2.us released an article basically saying that Liquid declined the invite because the event starts a week after the American RMR.
Yeah, which I kind of get, but also
apparently
they're so well. Like, Brazil is such a big home for Liquid. Like, they have a lot of fans there. You would have thought they wanted to.
So now that we go to the actual Antichrist himself, Ryan at dust2.us, he put out a longer tweet about this, which basically said that if Liquid go to Brazil, they will be away from home for 3 months in a row at least, without even thinking about a break. And that's dependent on how you think about it and how you want to do it and how the players think. But it plus boot camp plus extended runs, 3 months on the road with no time. It's like we're back in 2019, just before the pandemic hit, where everyone was going. Ryan's tweet is, Liquid's genuine realistic goal is to win Paris. They don't want to stretch themselves too thin. As a team without a roster change since Cologne last year, they genuinely have a shot to do so. Travel burnout is a real concern, which,
yeah, I get it,
is reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
All the teams that go to play in Europe can just go home in between events.
It's a shame for the Brazilian fans, as they Liquid are pretty big over there because Fallen played for them because they're like a liege, but you got to take care of your own players first.
Yeah, I mean, there is no one in that org that wants everyone to burn out pre-major and then go to the major and have a shit showing, because we do need to show that NA is better than France.
I don't think there's many concerns over that.
I know, but it's an imperative thing. It's lasted for 300 years. It's not like we can stop this. All right, next on the list. Speaking of France, my notes say France Keck W.
Yeah,
there's 2 bits here.
We talked last week about how France is imploding, and they're just continuing to implode. So there was talk of Python being kicked from Falcons with Body coming in, and then they announced yesterday, actually, no,
it's going to be Haji.
Haji is going, Body is coming in, and then Nell said that apparently Body and Haji don't really get on, and then the general manager was like, "Oh no, that's nonsense. I'm happy to clarify in DMs." It's like, well, if you're willing to say that's not true in public, why would you only clarify it in DMs? That seems very odd to me. But you know, as far as I'm concerned, what Nell's opinion doesn't really matter. You should really be saying it to your own fans, who probably, you know, if you feel like they deserve. If you feel like what Nell is saying is untrue, you should clarify the actual truth to your fans instead of just sort of vaguely saying, no, that's not true. Personally, that's how I feel. If you're going to go on record and say that, but I don't know what's going on. I don't think Body is even the same style of player as Haji. I don't think Haji should be getting cut from Falcons. When Falcons are actually, like, Falcons were a pretty solid team, and then they've, like, Theseus shipped their entire team into, like, all of the bad players from France, and now they're just going to be rubbish.
Yeah,
I quite like Body, but I don't think NBK and Kenny S are any good anymore, and I don't see how NBK, Kenny S, Body together is ever going to be better than what you already had.
Yep.
Personally, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kenny S can roll back the years, and he's actually 2014 Kenny S again.
The worst part about the fact that I wrote France kick W is because we have not one, not two, but three French teams to talk about.
Yeah, I mean,
let's talk about number 2, Heat. We talked about the implosion of Heat last week, and guess what? They're starting again.
Yeah,
so they're bringing Lucky back. So okay, Body is leaving and Afro is leaving, and we'll talk about the team that Afro is going to in a minute. But Body and Afro are leaving, so they need people to come back in. Body was the starter of Double Pony, which was the team before Heat when they got signed. Jax is leaving Heat. Apparently, Lucky is joining for Jax. And then Maka Falcons is joining. Lucky is returning from the bench. Maka is coming from Falcons. And Rasmo, who is a name I've never heard of and who only has one event registered on HLTV, which is the ESL National Championship France Autumn 2021, where he registered against the Heat Core, a .64 rating.
Clearly impressed.
This team's all over the place. This used to be France's next hope, or retired hope or something.
I'm pretty sure Heat couldn't afford to sign Body when they did, because there was talk that they didn't have enough money to sign him, and they were like, "No, we've raised money to sign him." Was it Body? It was Jax. Sorry, they didn't have enough money to sign Jax when they did, and they raised money to sign him. For whatever reason, I don't understand why they did that, because Jax is perfectly serviceable, but he's not the player who's going to elevate you to the next level. And I think now they realize, actually, we don't have any money, we need to scale this back.
Yeah. I have a third French team that we need to talk about. Let's talk about LDLC, a name that you probably haven't heard from in a while. There's a good reason for that. It's because they've been stuck in Tier 2 France for a while, but we may have a solution, which is Afro is joining LDLC, and a guy by the name of Amanek, who you may remember from being G2 Esports, I can do literally anything guy.
Personally, I remember him from Misfits because I'm cool.
Okay, Sean Gares. Is also on this team. So now we have 2 players who are actually very, very good, with 3 younger French players who... Actually, that could go either way on any given day of the week. This could just quietly have become the best French, actually French team without trying too hard at it.
There's still Shocks and Smith's team. You never know.
God, I fucking hate France.
True and real.
Just they're just so all over the place. I don't have a better
Yeah, like
answer.
none of these teams really fill you with confidence. Falcons look like the best one on name value, but that's if you're including how good they were 5 years ago.
It's
Whereas,
like if you're running a popularity contest, it's Falcons. If you're running a like rough history contest recently, it's Heat. Maybe.
I'd probably say Falcons still.
If you're running like a what have they done for you in the last 6 months thing, it may be LDLC. I don't know who it is.
I don't think any of them are going to Paris, which is just hilarious to me. The closest they're going to have is going to be like Vitality, and then Apex is going to go like 9-24 in an important game, and they're going to lose.
Yep.
And they're going to, like, one of their 2 French players is going to lose the game for them, and they're not going to get past group stages, and it's going to be beautiful. I would laugh so hard if the furthest a French team gets in Paris is like group stage.
Do they even get to groups?
It'd be so nice.
Are
Vitality will get to groups.
Are they automatically in groups, or do they not?
Nah, but they'll get through the play-in. Like,
hey, Bad News Eagles, man. There's a reason they're at the majors.
Well, look, Vitality, like the play-in, yeah, they'll get through the play-in.
All right. Yeah, 1.5 last bits to talk about. We're going to talk about Blast, and then more specifically, Evil Geniuses.
Yeah.
But let's start with Blast. So Group A, Group B have finished groups. Well, finished. We don't have a winner from each group, but for all the games other than the winner bit have been played. Other than the Navi match, which literally just finished, actually. So all of them have been played. So we have the single elimination lower tier bracket thing still left, and the final one. But we can get some pretty good guesses from this point. Let's start with Group C, which went exactly as we expected. So this was the group with G2, Big, Navi, and NIP. Let's start from bottom up. Big.
Yep, that'll do.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Next team.
Exactly the team you think they are.
Yep.
Every time.
Let's talk about the next team, because there is a storyline here. NIP. Head Trick.
Head Trick looks pretty good. Like, coming in as his first event. I know Blade said he's not ready to consistently play versus Tier 1. He looks like he probably is ready to play versus Tier 1. I don't know I don't know if he's going to be the best over in the world, but he looks pretty damn good. They also had Hampus missing for their final game, which it's unknown personal issues. Wish him the best.
Yeah,
can't really say much more than that. It's going to hurt their chances of going far if Hampus can't play.
Yeah. So they got beat by Navi just now. So they will be
in
the
you wouldn't expect anything less.
Back. Yep. But Head Trick performed well against Navi in both the games. 1.25 in the game that they just played. 107 in the first game that he played, and against Big 111. So,
yep,
totally respectful across the board.
He's pretty good. He's kind of what you expect. Like, I expected him to be pretty good. He's pretty good. I don't know if he's going to be the best player in the world, but to be honest, I'm not sure NIP expect him to be. Certainly not just yet. He looks good.
Yeah. Let's talk about the clusterfuck that was Group B. So let's remind you that this was the group with FaZe, Complexity, Liquid, and OG. And if you are a long-time listener, you will remember that last week we talked about how Liquid, in their opening match against OG, could absolutely lose. Not being Liquid's fault, not being OG's fault, but Liquid just being Liquid. And guess what? They did it. And then guess what? They did it again.
Yeah. I think OG are a little bit underrated. I think people...
No, they absolutely are.
I think people write them off too much. Like, what OG are is very inconsistent, but their ceiling is very good. I think people, for whatever reason, don't rate the individuals on OG in the way that they should. Their individuals are very good. I think sometimes they're not always greater than the sum of their parts, because I don't think Nexa is a great in-game leader. But I think the parts they have are very good. And when they click, they beat FaZe in a best-of-3 last year. They've now beaten Liquid in back-to-back best-of-3s. Like, I think people are not really giving OG the respect they deserve. They're a pretty good team, and people, like, I don't know, just completely write them off.
So I can give you the reason I write them off on a general basis is because of the flip-floppity. And I think that it's probably the way most people will write them off is, yeah, they may win this game, and that'll be great if they do, but, like, it's a coin toss, so I'm going to stick with the pessimistic side.
Sure, but, like, when people talk about NIP,
I always
they talk about NIP. Well, we talk about NIP in a very different way to how many, but, like, people talk about NIP having, like, this amazing rifle core and just needing an AWPer, whereas, like, they don't talk about OG in the same way, and I found that very strange. Like, NIP and OG, to me, are very similar levels, and people talk about it as if NIP are a full level above. I think that's kind of unfair. I think OG are a pretty good team, especially individually. Like, Fiku, I think, is a good player. Neofrag, I think, is a good player. Flames, I think, is a good player. Like,
I think
individually, and Dexter is, like, on his game, and he's phenomenal. Like, he's quite resource heavy, but he gets the job done.
I think my big problem is not the underrating OG in this match, is the fact that Liquid should have won either of these matches.
Yeah, probably, but I don't think it's like, I don't know. I'm not that surprised OG beat Liquid because OG are pretty good and they're capable of beating good teams. And I think people, I don't know, people underrate them because they didn't. People really wanted them to sign JKS instead of Fiku and Neofrag. And I think what they did is actually quite interesting. And I think, I don't know, I think this seems fine. I think it's, there's like a world where they click and become ends. And there's a world where they don't click and they end up just not doing anything. But I think this team is more interesting and better than people are willing to give them credit for.
Other teams this group, Complexity went out, 4 maps, nothing.
I'm bored of talking about Complexity.
There needs to be a rebuild to this team, but we're not going to talk about it this week because I don't have the mental fortitude to talk about.
Yeah, I just don't care anymore. Like, I tried to care for ages, and I just can't anymore. They're just boring me.
FaZe breezed their way through to the finals.
Yep.
And then Liquid, did Liquid things. And
Liquid inconsistent as ever, but we know they can win against anyone. We know they can be a genuinely good team. We don't know if they are.
Yeah. Group A needs a little bit more of a deep dive. So the teams that are in the group finals are Vitality and Heroic.
As expected.
The problem is it didn't get here how you probably would have expected. Vitality did. They beat up on Astralis and they beat up in the upper finals. But Heroic got beat up by EG. Almost
the first
twice.
Time. I don't know about almost twice.
Okay, maybe not almost, but
they fucked them in map 2 and 3 of the second series.
Okay. EG whooped on Heroic. Maybe not whooped, but
yeah, they looked very good in the opening game.
They very good in the opening game.
If you remember last week, I said it's the first game after the player break. Anything can happen. There is a world where EG beat Heroic, or words to that effect. I was, coming back of a player break, anything can happen.
Yeah,
anything did happen. Then Heroic played him a second time, smacked him on map 2 and 3. Normal services resumed. EG aren't actually any good. It was just a lucky win after a player break that they've got too excited about.
I wouldn't say they're not any good.
I would.
I'd say that they are a solid number 20 team.
I don't know about solid. They probably are the 20th best team in the world.
Here's my reasoning.
The sands are permanently shifting.
They put Astralis at 18.
Yeah, well, I don't think Astralis are the 18th best team in the world.
Yeah, I think EG's worse than Astralis, and if we're putting Astralis at 18, then I'll put EG at 20. But
let's check the only ranking that matters, the ESL World Ranking.
No, you gotta check the Valve ranking, man.
So ESL have Evil Geniuses at 21st. But, alright. Do you think Evil Geniuses are a better team than Sprout?
No.
No, I don't either. However, I will say some of the teams above them, ATK versus EG. EG are probably better than ATK.
I think EG's a better team at this minute right now.
I think EG are better than Complexity at the moment.
I think EG are miles better than Complexity. They took a map.
Yeah. I think EG Pain, MIBR. I'm not willing to call that, but I'm sure somebody would say EG is better.
EG
Fine.
is better.
And some of the teams below them, though, like I think Sprouts are better. In a best of 3 versus Bad News Eagles, how confident are you that Evil Geniuses win?
I'm 50-50.
Yeah. I'm not confident.
Something I do want to say is in the games that EG did play, that there at least was an upgrade. Let's talk about Blueprint for a minute. The 2 or 3 players that came from the Blueprint here, right? The team is made up of 2 old, quote unquote, EG players in Automatic and Breezy, 1 import in Nealon, and then 2 Blueprint players in Hext and Wiz. Hext and Wiz were good.
Hex looked good for a bit, relative. and then Heroic just dicked him over and over again.
Yeah, but neither of them were a liability. I know that's a really low curve, but
that really is like a low bar, isn't it? Like
for my bar for EG, which is very low to begin with, they were okay.
I'm just looking now. So obviously they won the first series, yep, great, and they won Heroic's pick of Nuke in the second series.
Okay.
After that, in the final 2 maps of that series, they won 7 rounds.
Yeah.
Like, we could talk all you want about how EG were impressive in the first series and how they took map 1. They got 7 rounds in 2 maps. They got 2 rounds on their own map pick.
Yes.
Hext and Wiz, who were so impressive, went a combined 16 and 33 on Overpass.
Yep. And it wasn't
on
much
Mirage,
better
they
on
went
Mirage.
A combined 23 and 33.
Yeah.
They're fine. They're no worse than Automatic, who over the full series went 28 and 51.
Let's make it very clear here. They are better. At least Wiz is better than whatever Cirque was doing.
I mean, it's a bit early to say. I don't think he was very good in those final 2 maps. Like,
yeah, he wasn't very good in those final 2 maps. But would Cirque have done any better?
No, but
okay. But
is he better than Cirque?
Where the 2 maps where they actually did well,
Cirque went 15 and 12 Nuke. Fine. In the map they won.
Rather, somehow Cirque would have had a negative rating on a map that they won.
I don't know, man. Yeah, okay, the maps they won were impressive. The maps they lost were not impressive at all. Like, every map they lost, they got blown out in.
Yeah.
I think...
Let's make this clear.
Okay, the closest they got in a map loss was 16-11 versus Vitality, which was their own map pick.
16-14. Oh, no, those
they
are
won 16-14. So they won 2 maps 16-14. They won 1 quite cleanly against Heroic, and the other 2 they won 16-14. They lost 16-1, 16-2, 16-5, and 16-11 in their map losses. And there was another one as well, 16-7. Like, they got smacked in their losses.
I'm not ready to say they're good.
No, I'm not ready to say they've even got better.
But I am prepared to make the claim that they are the 2nd best team in North America.
That's fine.
They've overtaken Complexity, which shouldn't be a mark that you're trying to aim for. But somehow it is.
Alan Iverson was bigger than Muggsy Bogues. He was still tiny.
I don't know how it is that somehow there's one North American team that's really good and that there's such a drop-off to every other one. I don't get it, but it's not for me to get.
Yeah, Evil Genius got smacked in the maps they lost. They won a couple of impressive maps. First game back after the player break, and then again against Heroic, fine. I think the only one I'd be excited about is that 16-9 versus Heroic, but they then just got splatted on their own map pick. And it's like,
yeah. Oh, sorry. One more statement before we go, because we've hit the end of the podcast this week. We talked about RMR qualifiers earlier. Blast has released some new information there. So basically, European, South American, and North American qualifiers will have an additional open qualifier.
Yeah, people were complaining there was only one.
Yep. So there will be an additional one like a couple days later. So that means Cato people won't have issues, at least with the second qualifier. That's all. We will be back again next week to talk about Cato. We start next week in Cato, I believe.
Yes, I might be. Well, we'll work out when we can record. I'm working Cato, so
we will start next week for Cato. But until that point, make sure to follow us on Twitter at ReadTLDR, at LoganRaffUp, and at aizy. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.